Still has plenty of influence here in Highland Park. This congregation numbers nearly as many as the population of Highland Park. Its budget is half the size of the town's, and for influence, no institution in Dallas or Highland Park has a comparable contingent of VIPs. But like any other institution, it's run by men. It has its own politics and personality and occasional hirings and firings. It has influential characters and ways of getting things done. In short, it operates much the same as the corporation you might work for or the political party you may belong to. Remember all the names for the congregation this large? Well, certainly I don't remember them all, but I do make a real concerted effort to remember them, because I start with the basic assumption that the individual is important, and to know his name is important. I think every person and each of these men has been in the type business where he's met the public all the
surgery on her throat. Speaks in sort of whispers. Some of you have met around here. They've now located.
Get that done for you.
Given some chemotherapy, very severe treatments now, and her husband Guy is staying out there 24 hours a day now has 3 or 4 days. But hopefully the brain scan was to have been done last night, and perhaps they have a report in a day or two then as to how severe it is and whether or not their chemotherapy is doing any good. Don't know of any others who are on the critically ill list.
Life, and they will be excellent 5 groups and fellowship. And in 1974, on our first Sunday, I was especially gratified when I looked at it with a youth junior high and senior high bill. You had about almost exactly twice as many this year as you did last year in your actual Sunday morning Sunday school, which I think is certainly excellent in our youth division. And we're still fighting the battle of the second grade. If we can get the hump over in the second grade, I think we've got it made in the elementary. And we may not be able to do that unless we actually get some more people.
That's right. We've done everything. We've invited parents. We've just made every possible effort to get good attendance.
Right. Every other grade seems to be doing well. Grade 4 is down a little bit. I think that's not right. It's not a normal situation. And the church is one generation away from dying almost. It could be extinct at any time that any generation chooses not to be a part of the church. In answer to your question,
And a very good group of this.
our average Sunday morning Sunday school attendance, which is very, very encouraging and very heartening. That was one of our goals this year, you'll remember, was to turn that around on the upside and start it back up, which we have done. And sometimes stopping it and getting it turned around is the most difficult part of the entire procedure. I'm not sure.
To make arrangements for money and how it was going to be financed, whether it's going to be paid for all at one time or going to be. Methodist Church is located on the corner of Hillcrest and Mockingbird. In addition to the physical plant at that location, we have parking lot on Hillcrest and Normandy. In addition, we own a camp, Lake Sharon, which is located 35 miles from Dallas. Now, we estimate the value of the land, the replacement value of the building and the equipment at $9.25 million. we had $1,488,000 come through the business office. This gives you some idea of the amount of money that is handled by Highland Park United Methodist Church. And handling money that belongs to the church and various members of the congregation, I think you can readily see that it's very important that we have tight internal control and are able to answer questions as to how the money was received and how it was expended. To make sure that everything is in order, we work very closely with our auditor, and each year we have an audit by an independent firm who has no relationship to the church.
Simply because each department within the church has a budget. It needs to operate on that budget. You need to understand trends. You need to understand projections. You need to understand what's happened in the previous year. I think you need to understand general business practices and procedures. I think it's very helpful. I wouldn't say certainly that you could not operate a church, but I think it adds to your ministry to be able to be a good businessman as well as a good minister.
If you wear a hat, has its powerful members, and this church is no exception. Power is important here, whether it's calling on these individuals to influence the congregation or calling on them to acquire a low-interest $1 million loan for the church. Business activities.
I think it's important for several reasons. I think it's important that these people choose to identify with the Christian community. I think this says something about their witness in the community. It also is important in that these men are usually, and/or women, are usually capable of unusual leadership abilities, which allow you to fill positions in your church with extremely capable people who are not only committed Christians but successful business people. And then third, I think it's important in that there are certain things in the community and in the church that need to be done from time to time, and when you have the support of people such as this, it helps you to do this, to accomplish your goals.
15 years, former ministers have tried to get a new sanctuary built here. They began by calling a private meeting of those influential people, which is how any major civic decision-making begins in Dallas. If those influentials agree, then they can bankroll about $2 or $3 million of the project and try to persuade the congregation to pitch in the rest.
Talk with the leaders involved in that particular area. If it's a consensus that this is a good idea, then you ask them to go back to their respective groups and get feedback. And then if you find groups that are interested, then you go to those groups and you talk with those groups and you just begin to move in, starting in a small circle and begin to move out in larger circles until you include more and more people. And I think this way you get constant feedback on what's good and what's not good and what's needed and what the people will support and what they won't support.
This congregation will sit out here each Sunday and on weekdays run the city's other great institutions. They include a former Dallas mayor, former Dallas school board president, and the University Park mayor. Two chief counsels, life insurance companies sit here. As are the Times-Herald publisher and its vice chairman, and of course, a Dallas Morning News vice president. This church includes SMU's last two presidents, a founder of Texas Instruments, and a utility holding company chairman. Also two military generals and a pair of the nation's wealthiest developers. The VIP list goes on and on.
A number of different congregations in the sense that you have people with different attitudes, different ideas, different backgrounds, different philosophies, who are united into a single congregation by the spiritual dimension of a common faith. And this is what I
Acapella, we're going to sing on Georgia Starting Bang Bang Swing, and then we'll just go right on into the chorus like I had one, okay? If we give us a start, Bill, we'll go on from there. Some of you weren't singing. I really thought some of you didn't know it. Some of you really didn't know that hymn? Okay, that was a good hymn. We'll learn it. We'll sing some more like that every once in a while. 283.
Methodist ministers assume that because they have been appointed to a congregation, they automatically become the leader, and this is not necessarily true at all. Real leadership generally grows out of the group. It's a person who's accepted by the group. Many times a lay person in the congregation will be much more of a real leader, a natural leader, than the minister. And if the minister assumes that simply because he has been appointed to that church he is the leader, he's in for a lot of heartaches, because is a part of being a leader, plus the fact that there are within every individual certain unidentifiable traits of leadership which have to be developed and brought to the forefront. Okay. On my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named, that according to the riches of His glory, He may grant you to be strengthened with His might through His Spirit in the inner man, and that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have power to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth, from accepting fully God's love. In that spirit, let us bow for a moment of prayer. Our Father, we come this morning understanding we do not know all of the mysteries of life, that we do not understand your ways. And yet we can this morning, our Father, understand enough to be willing to accept in faith the fullness of God which has been revealed. Too keen about the church passing resolutions, not because I have any objection whatsoever to the church taking a stand when it feels it needs to take a stand, but I feel that most of the time our resolutions have been pretty much politically oriented as opposed to theologically or philosophically oriented. And then I've never seen resolutions that accomplish anything more than dividing the church or the congregation.